So you're going to start a podcast, but you don't have a structure for each episode. Well, you're going to need one before you start. You can't just press play on the microphone and start talking. Well, you can, but let's face it, it's like driving a car without Google Maps on and you're not sure where you're going. You're going to get lost. And you want to make sure your listeners keep listening to you. So you're going to want to make sure you have a great podcast structure. Hey, it's Jennifer Lee, and I've been a broadcaster for over 10 years. I started off as a radio DJ, and even the best radio DJs that I know of, they have structure to their breaks. They have an in and an out, and that's what makes them great. They just don't hit the microphone and start talking. They know what they're going to talk about. So I'm going to share with you 3 secret tips to making the best podcast structure. So let's get started. Tip number 1. First, you got to figure out if your podcast is going to be episodic or serialized. What does that mean? You're looking at me like, well, let me tell you. Episodic is really simple. It's usually podcasts that you're listening to, and every episode is its own contained topic. So you listen to one about yoga and say it's all about the benefits of yoga. That's one podcast. And then the next one, say, is all about essential oils, still under the well-being category, health and wellness. But you can listen to them, learn what you need to, and then move on. So serialized is a little bit different. A lot of the crime podcasts, if you're into those, are serialized because they're telling a story. Each episode is part of that story, and you need to listen to all of them to understand what's going on. So there you go. That's the difference between episodic and serialized. Tip number 2. Okay, so this tip is something that I've said in a few videos, and I think it's a really important tip. And it's research. Anytime you're going to start a podcast, you need to research what your podcast is going to be about. You got to make sure it's something that you're going to be able to carry on from episode to episode to episode. You don't want to choose a topic that is going to dry up and say you do 3 episodes and then that's the end of your podcast. No, podcasts can go on for years. So you want to make sure that you've got enough content. So you really want to research your topic and make sure it's something that people are going to listen to too. You want to research and see if there are other podcasts out there around this topic, because if there isn't, it might not be a topic that you want to do a full podcast on. It could be an episode, but it might not be something that you want to build your podcast around, because if people aren't listening to other podcasts like that one out there, there might not be a need for it. So you really want to research and see what's going on. Is there an audience for the topic that I want to do? So that is my other tip. Research. Make sure you're finding a topic to build your podcast around that people want to listen to. Tip number 3, you want to create an outline. So I mentioned I was a radio DJ, and a lot of the great radio DJs that I know, they always write the in and the out for their break and a few points in between. That way they don't get lost when they start talking. They know exactly how they're getting into the break, and they know what they're going to talk about in the middle of it, and they know how to get out of it. Same thing goes for podcasting. You want to have a beginning, middle, and an end. So you're going to give an intro about the topic you were talking about on that episode, and you're going to lead in with that. And then in the middle part, it's about why you're talking about that topic and what your listeners can get from that topic and why they're going to listen to that episode, basically, and continue listening. And then the end is your conclusion, and it's going to wrap up what you just talked about. And that's it. You've got your beginning, middle, and end for your podcast episode. So it's simple as that. That's all you need to do. And then that way you definitely have your roadmap for your podcast, and you don't need to feel like you're on a road trip where you got lost in the car. So really easy. Make sure you have an outline. It takes some time to do, but trust me, you'll be thankful for it, because it's going to give you a higher quality of product. Your podcast is going to be something more people want to listen to, because you're not going to sound like you're lost. You're going to sound like you know what you're doing. And that's the point of this, right? Okay, so thanks for joining me today. Of course, hit the subscribe button below and the bell for notifications, and I'll talk to you again soon.